Welcome into our weekly discussion program. We call it Moral Side of the News, and we're glad you're with us each and every week. I'm John Blim with the WHAS Crusade for Children. With me, as usual, is a distinguished panel today. Reverend Jason Crosby, Crescent Hill Baptist Church. Reverend Clay Calloway, West Louisville Ministers Coalition. Dr. John Slider, Breckenridge Chapel Free Methodist. And Father Bill Hammer, St. Margaret Mary and St. William Catholic Churches. Our first topic, COVID-19, is front and center in the news again. Across the country, including in this region, the more contagious and possibly more deadly Delta variant is now the dominant strain. Louisville health officials announced cases have doubled in this past week. Experts say cases can be traced to birthday parties, weddings, sports tournaments, restaurants, church services, summer camps, correctional facilities, 4th of July parties, and water parks. Meantime, debate continues about requiring masks in public schools this fall. So turning to our panel on Moral Side of the News, are we mentally ready for another mask mandate or shutdown?
No. That's my opinion. We're trying to get back, I think, we as a society. It depends on what you mean by are we ready. Emotionally, socially, probably not, but I think a lot of people will comply out of what, fear or concern for others. I'm still not quite certain who the mask protects. If I've got the vaccine and if I've had COVID, which I've both, who needs to wear a mask? Is it the person who hasn't had it or has had it, who's been vaccinated or who hasn't been vaccinated? So I want a little more clarity. Out of care and concern for others' issues, I'll carry a mask with me and comply with the store, but just because I don't want to be rude to other people.
No, John. John and John. I agree with John Slider, your assessment that it's not something that I feel that we are collectively, emotionally and spiritually prepared for, or certainly something that folks would be looking forward to. But I do think it is worth once more reiterating, is I think many of us have done on this broadcast, the importance of getting vaccinated. I think that if we're going to avoid future mandates or other limitations that are either imposed upon us or we individually self-impose, one of the best ways that we can all ensure that we mitigate against the possibility of future mass mandates is to voluntarily make the choice to get vaccinated. And I think one thing that we've seen is that the Delta variant has continued to spread and become more prominent is that unfortunately it's disproportionately, extraordinarily affecting those who are unvaccinated in terms of the number of new cases, in terms of the number of hospitalizations, and in terms of deaths. So my continued hope and prayer, as has been the case for a long duration of time, is that people of faith, people of care and concern for others will listen to the medical professionals who for quite some time now have continued to do their best to plead with us that the vaccinations really are the pathway to moving beyond this position in which we find ourselves.
Lend myself to the chorus of no's. I don't think we're prepared any more than somebody's prepared who has been diagnosed with cancer, been through the chemo, been through the radiation, been through the surgery. They go back a year or two later for a follow-up checkup, and then they find out it's back. I mean, nobody prepares for reoccurrences to naturally happen, but when they do happen, it doesn't mean it's over with. It means you continue to follow the medical advice and protocols that you have from your oncologist if it's cancer, or if it's some form of other, illness that you have that's an ongoing part of our life right now. One of the things that I haven't seen myself personally, but somebody was reporting to me that they had an update on those phone apps, update that came up. And actually we're up now to a Lambda variant, so that the Delta variant itself would be 3 variants down the road from the original Alpha.
Yeah.
That's what Delta is. It's the 3 letters after Alpha in the Greek alphabet. And if in fact we are up to the Lambda variant, that's another 7 or so beyond Delta, which means that ultimately there's like 11 variants out there. The ones that are getting the most notoriety, the ones most contagious, the most dangerous, which is right now the Delta one. Again, I'm not saying I didn't see this. Don't know if somebody else was out there, just sending out silly stuff, and maybe it was some fraternity they wanted to emphasize their Lambda letter or whatever it might be. I'm not going to be dismissive of it. But if it is in fact a correct, information that we're already up to a Lambda development, in the COVID disease, and this is something that's going to be with us for a very long haul, not unlike all the other flus. And we do take cautions every year, to try to do that. So it is important to get vaccinated. It is important to be concerned for other people's health. And again, like you were saying, John, I'm not ready to do it. I generally don't wear a mask when I'm in other groups now. But if asked to do it, I will do it for the sake of others. And my intuition is that the reason they're going to, if it's possible, perceived need to do it, is because people don't trust people. I think if you say that if you're vaccinated, you have to wear a mask. If you're not vaccinated, don't wear a mask. You have to wear a mask. But people know that unvaccinated will not wear their mask. So it's easier to make sure everybody, got their mask. That's my intuition.
Well, if I may weigh in with what has already been said, I think that some basic facts dictate some adjustments. I think we're in 2021 now, and because of the vaccine and some improvements that have been introduced to society because of the vaccine, we have been lulled into believing that we have won the war against COVID. We have not. There's no cure. We're still in it, to win it. We have not won it. So I think it would do well, first of all, by updating. You mentioned the updating of the numbers. I think we could update the description of the COVID from 19 to at least COVID 21. That might help some remind us that we are in another cycle of this variant fight. We first discovered it in 19, I think that's how it's got its name, I believe, because of a year, but we're in 2021 now. We can update that. And the COVID has redoubled its effort. Before, instead of getting weaker, it's gotten stronger because it has enlisted more allies with this Delta variant. So I think with the consideration of a mask mandate, it's proven. Even Mitch McConnell, that I never quote, I never agree with, he said something the other day that was in stark contrast to what many of his Republican colleagues have been saying, that the vaccine is good, wearing the mask is good, and it benefits us. So we need to not, delude or deceive people by thinking that is not working, that is not benefiting our society. So I think if another mask mandate is in the works, so be it. Anything that is designed to save life and protect life is a priority for our elected officials and our politicians to protect life. So I think that we need to follow the path of life, as Jesus suggested, that always lean toward life, living, and safety. So whatever's going to guarantee that for the massive, then that's the way we need to go.
I don't remember that quotation in the Gospels, but I'll I'll go with you, Clay. I just pushing back a little bit against the concept of mandate. Surprise. Who is the mask actually protecting? Me? Well, if I've either chosen not to or received the vaccine, and the odds are, and I've had COVID, I've had the vaccine, I've had COVID, the mask is not going to add too much to my protection or the protection of somebody else. If somebody else is worried about getting it from me, they wear the mask, or not, if they choose. I just push back a little bit against the concept of a mandate, and that's kind of a fuzzy word anyway. And each business can decide what their policies are. I'm okay with that. And again, I'll carry something around with me just so. I went into a nursing home for a visit the other day, and that was a requirement there. So I put it on, so it just wasn't an issue. That's my main reason for carrying the mask with me. If somebody chooses not to protect themselves with the mask and the vaccine, to me, that's their choice until they go into somebody's business or a government office or something where it's required. But the government making a just broad mandate for everybody has to do that, I'll push back a little bit against that.
And John, I think those are fair questions. And I think that I hope that one thing we've learned collectively, and I hope that people of faith and religious leaders have supported this, is that science is not perfect. It's based upon scientific method, trial and error. And there have been a few missteps along the way in terms of what we've learned or how it's been communicated. And I think there will continue to be some gray areas and some confusion moving forward when it comes to, for instance, your question, which is a fair one about, who are the mask protecting? But I think my general posture is we're still trying to sift through what it is that is best practice in terms of what the science is telling us, is just to err on the side of caution. Sure. And to is a demonstration that I am one that is doing my best to care for myself as well as others. I will do so, but I do recognize that some of those questions remain unanswered, but I'm okay with that. And again, I think, generally speaking, the science, even though there have been some questions that have emerged and some things that haven't been communicated that have been spot on, I think generally speaking, we've been led in the right direction by scientific authorities. One other quick point to Father Hammer's statement about the number of variants that are out there. Variants thrive in the absence of people who are vaccinated. The large quantity of people that are unvaccinated provide the additional opportunities for variants to circulate and for these spin-offs to occur. So in addition to getting vaccinated, if folks haven't been at this point, in order to preclude individuals from dealing with the negative effects of the Delta variant, as long as there are large numbers of people that are unvaccinated, there will continue to be, as Father Hammer mentioned, new offshoots, new strains, new variants that present themselves until the pool gets smaller and smaller so that the variants cannot circulate and find new iterations of COVID among us.
I mean, there is a certain sense in which we do mandate that driving at certain speeds in certain areas is putting people and yourself at risk. So we mandate speed limits, an example. Now, people choose not to follow them. I put my hand up. If I'm in a 55 zone, I'm likely going to be going 60 miles an hour. I likely am. But having said that, it doesn't mean that mandate is something that should be ignored, even if I'm choosing to do that. As a consequence would come from that. I think that's part of what experience has taught us, that that it's saying, just because you got the vaccine doesn't mean you won't get the variant. People who have the vaccine are getting the variant. But the vaccine helps mitigate the severity of the variant in those who are vaccinated, and it seems to be pretty clearly those who are unvaccinated are getting the full force of that variant to the point of very serious responses. So, government does do a lot of mandating, which sometimes we can say is of questionable value. I can pick whatever speed I want to drive. I know what my safe speed of driving is.
On Moral Side of the News, our second topic, COVID-19 continues to spark accusation, heated debates, and tweets. The latest by the chair of Kentucky's House Education Committee. Regina Huff, representative, a Republican from Williamsburg, is under fire for tweeting a photo of cult leader Jim Jones alongside White House medical advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci in what many said appeared to compare the Jonestown massacre of 1978 to the efforts to get Americans vaccinated. Meanwhile, in a heated exchange between Senator Rand Paul and Dr. Fauci during a Senate hearing committee, Fauci exclaimed, "You do not know what you're talking about," when discussing a research paper with Rand Paul about bat coronaviruses. So turning to our panel again on Moral Side of the News, has the pandemic sent us over the edge of civility and kind speech? Your thoughts?
Well, it hasn't set us over the edge here, the five of us. We're doing all right, and we've had a little disagreement. I'm impressed that Bill Hammer has revealed himself to be a libertarian, at least with speed limits. People do silly things. All of us are pastors here. If I used to tell my wife, I said, don't ask me to explain why somebody did something. It's something that sounds good in your brain. Well, we've all had sermons like that. Something that sounds good in your brain doesn't always come out right. And I'm not excusing anybody. I don't necessarily want to link the two events that you described as somehow connected, other than they are loosely involved with COVID. I'm probably more supportive of one person and one event than the other event. But well, to say it, I'm Senator Paul, I think, at least has the responsibility to raise some issues. I don't like the government bureaucrat telling an elected official that he doesn't know what he's talking about. He may not, but that was a little much for the bureaucrat to be insisting that he knew more than about what needed to be done than the elected official. But I'll throw that out as red meat for the other three gents.
But getting back to Rand Paul and the Fauci debacle. Clearly, Rand Paul does not have a history, nor reputation, nor record in the area of infectious diseases as Dr. Fauci has. He's had a stellar career in service in the area of many cycles of diseases that have affected this nation, and Rand Paul does not. Rand Paul is an ophthalmologist. He's an elected official, but he does not have the knowledge or the credentials to debate Dr. Fauci with his knowledge and credentials. Now, what Rand Paul does, Rand is a brand. He's a brand of abrasion. That's what he does. That's his brand, to be a firebrand, to stoke fires of confusion among his political base. So, but with respect to the saving of life should be job one, and not some political advantage that is introduced to continue confusion and disinformation in the public discourse. That's what Rand Paul has done, is doing. So it's sad to say that many people agree with Rand Paul, with his brand of being a firebrand and being abrasive. So it's important to listen to those who have the knowledge and reputation and the credentials of having more knowledge in a given subject than you do. And Rand Paul is speaking about something. As Mr. Dr. Fauci indicated, he doesn't know what he's talking about. and there's evidence to support that fact.
Would you
So I
apply
think
the same? Would you apply the same principle?
Let me finish my point, John.
To
Let me finish
military policy and foreign policy.
Let me finish my point here.
Yeah.
Let me finish. Let me finish my point.
Sure.
So with respect to that whole debacle debate between Rand Paul and Fauci, then I think we need. This speaks for itself. And many people, depending on your political persuasion, will determine whether he is indeed one is a bureaucrat and one is a respected statesman. That depends on your political perspective. But I think we need to be very careful and follow the science, follow the facts of the whole issue, and do what needs to be done to save life. And in this case, this virus has proven to be a dividing line that we need to respect the facts and let the facts inform us in terms of what we decide to do with respect to saving human life.
Well, and I can't help but think of the biblical admonition that tells us that if we know the truth shall set us free. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that many who are in positions of authority, whether it's a United States senator like Rand Paul, or the woman in a position of authority at the state level who made the comparison between the Jamestown cult and the vaccination. COVID doesn't lie. And the basic principles that we have been told about this virus, how it will spread, how people will die, the numbers that will die, it continues to be consistent. And I think that any form of leadership at any level that tries to downplay the seriousness or to provide misinformation when it comes to the vaccination, or in Senator Paul's case, the origins, I guess that's the debate between Paul and Fauci. It has to do with U.S. government involvement in the origins of COVID. At this juncture, anything that diverts us from understanding the seriousness of this and that diverts us from encouraging people to take care of themselves and to take care of others is a sideshow. And I think shows and demonstrates a lack of leadership.
And your use of the word, Jason, of sideshow is where I was actually kind of leading. I think that what I view all this as is a form of theater, a form of, I'm not sure how entertaining it is, but a form of theater. And I think we have evolved or devolved into this type of media, type of way of responding to each other that was not possible, years ago, and maybe allowed for, more civil type discussions and debate. We can go back, the great, debates that Lincoln was involved in, the Lincoln Douglas debates, all those kind of things that would have been great disagreements, but were done very civilly. And when you're playing to a theater audience, then you tend to want to evoke that audience to your point. And so that's where I find the frustration in all this. The reference to Jonestown, I remember when that was a news story breaking, and how horrific, truly horrific that was, of an abuse of religion, of abuse of trust and faith and leadership. And that's not what I see going on right now, but it is a theater position to take. And both, I think, Dr. Fauci and Senator Paul are actively engaged in that sort of theater going on right now. I don't know how you break out of it, because if using a theater term, a lot is being done as an aside. You're talking off to your particular audience that you want to have hear you.
Well, Jason said something a moment ago about the COVID doesn't lie. it's true. It doesn't lie and reveals who's telling the truth and who's not telling the truth. In this sense, it does not lie, but COVID does discriminate. It clearly discriminates between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. Many of the new cases are occurring with the unvaccinated. So it clearly discriminates between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated, much like what happened in the Passover, the biblical Passover, those who had the blood over the doorpost. The death angel passed over that door and went someplace else. So the vaccine functions in a similar manner with those that are vaccinated and those that are not vaccinated. So it clearly discriminates and it does not lie. So there's a certain equity and democracy, if you will, imposed by the COVID itself. So regardless of what side of the debate you're on, the COVID will win the debate because it tells the truth and it will discriminate. And the numbers speak for themselves. So anything that is going to protect life based on the facts and the evidences, I think should clearly determine how policies are made and how behavior should be regulated. That's another word, should be regulated to protect the citizens of this Commonwealth and this nation.
One quick word, and then John Slider, I know it's your turn. There was an article that's been circulating that was an opinion piece that was penned by a Birmingham, Alabama doctor that's been making the rounds. I believe it initially appeared on alabama.com. Anyway, she was just talking about some of her experiences as a hospitalist in Birmingham over the course of the past couple months, and how nearly everyone that's come to the hospital and intubated that has died, had a serious case, has been unvaccinated, and how almost every single person right at the end is begging for a vaccine. And she has to look them in the eye and say it's too late. And the response and rationale is, I thought it was a hoax. I thought that it was a political tool. And that just goes, Clay, to the point I think we're both trying to make, that the numbers in COVID itself will not lie. It is the truth.
My point was very narrow about Senator Paul and Dr. Fauci's disagreement. They weren't, the issue at hand was not a debate over current policy, but expenditure of funds and how government funds may or may not have been involved in spreading the COVID to humans, and Dr. Fauci's role in obfuscating that, if he did. Truth will win out. And I don't hold out much hope for the Department of Justice to actually do any investigation, but if they do, we'll find out the truth, and I'll be happy with either finding.
Well, the truth is won out on the clock on my wall here that we've run out of time on this edition of More of the News. Thank you to Jason Crosby, Clay Calloway, John Slider, and Bill Hammer. Have a great week. Thank you, panel.